Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. But we are joined by very special guest and friend of the pod, returning guest, Logan Paulsen. You can find him on Instagram at Logan_Paulsen82. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm good, man. Thank you guys for having me back. Appreciate it.
Of course, and we have so much to unload here, Logan, but there's nobody better for us to come to with our questions about the draft than you, sir. So the first question I have for you is, like Pro Football Talk came out and said that Washington kind of reached with their first rounder in Jamin Davis. Do you feel the same way?
I don't. I think it just depends on how you have him evaluated. And after you watch Jamin Davis enough on tape, I think he warrants that first round selection. I think he warrants I would have felt comfortable if they had taken him at 15. Like, that's the type of athlete, that's the type of talent he has. I think he really does a nice job in terms of coverage. I've said that numerous times, but I think that is critical in today's NFL for the linebacker position. They are the position that is the most kind of exploited, right? They're the worst cover guys on the field. Everyone talks about the secondary safeties and how important it is to have coverage guys there. Obviously, that's true, but now the NFL game is moved to a point where those linebackers really need to cover. And if you watch his tape, that's something he has a very nice natural feel for. He's a great athlete, but he also has a nice feel for it. I think that's imperative. And then he's not bad in the run game. I think everyone that I spoke with has said, well, why didn't we take JOK at that spot? Or why didn't the Washington football team take JOK? And I would say with Jamin Davis, you get a true linebacker. With JOK, he was kind of more of a pure covered player. He's a good blitzer, kind of a safety hybrid, but here you have a very clear, categorized role for Jamin Davis. He can play all three linebacker spots, and he can play them all three very well. I think he's a day one starter, and I think he, I'm not exaggerating, I think he has a lot of potential to be a defensive rookie of the year candidate. So,
yeah, I agree. I actually was just looking on FanDuel today, and they got some pretty nice odds, so I'm probably going to lay some money on him for defensive rookie. But day two, they had 3 picks in the second, 2 in the third. These past couple of years, obviously the third round picks have come in. They've really contributed right away.
Yep.
Do you see either one of these guys coming in and contributed, and if not both?
I mean, obviously, I think Dyami Brown is a guy that is going to come in and make a pretty special impact, or he has the potential to make a pretty special impact. I think ideally you want Curtis Samuel in the slot. If you look at his tape from Carolina, not a ton of stuff, not a ton of work outside, more of a gadget, running back, slot receiver, reverse kind of jet sweep type player, and he's very dangerous in that role. So why not keep him in a position where he can be very comfortable and get Dyami on the outside and kind of flesh out that wide receiver group and have 3 guys who can make big plays here. I think that if I was going to say of the 2, that guy's probably going to have the bigger impact. I think Saint Jun, I don't know how to say his name.
Something Canadian.
Is I think very, very talented. I think he's got a ton of potential. Like, he's long. I know he's not the fastest guy necessarily, but his short area quickness is off the chart for a guy his size. And I think you look at a comp like Richard Sherman, for example, and you say to yourself, I think St. Just is better in the short area quickness. And I think that is something that's going to serve him well. He's outstanding at the catch point. I think he could play outside and maybe a little bit of safety. We'll see what they do with him, because obviously the Washington football team has 2 outstanding corners in Fuller and Williams. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how that musical chairs ends up settling. But I think the guy of the third round selection that's going to be the bigger impact first is Dyami.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. St. Just is interesting because he didn't do well in the slot, like, at all, apparently, according to PFF. When he played there, and that wasn't very often. So it was an interesting pick. But I mean, the guy's got a near 80-inch wingspan. I mean, that's just crazy for a cornerback.
When you see a guy who's 6'3", 205 pounds, you don't normally see them playing in the slot, because it's just so challenging. His skill set is, in my opinion, outside, and so he's
exactly
misused in that role.
Exactly. I completely agree. So this franchise is kind of known for its offensive linemen, as we all know. Washington, of course, took Sam Cosmi from Texas in the second round. Do you think he can or will be the next great left tackle at Washington, or do you think he has way too much to work on?
So I think that's a great question. So when I was doing my evaluations for offensive line for this year's draft, I think there was an interesting conundrum that presented itself. There was 2 guys who were true left tackles. That was Sewell and Slater, right? After that, I think there was a lot of good football players, but there was a lot of guys who played left in college, but I thought were probably better suited to right. They either had a technical deficiency or an athletic deficiency that made you kind of say, I don't know if they can, toe the line there at left tackle. And then Cosmi was one of probably 4 guys that I felt really confident could play left tackle. And the reason I felt that way is because when you turn on his tape, he's a tremendous athlete. And then that's supported by his, his RAS score, his RAS, and his tremendous pro day numbers, right? And so that's a big feature of being able to play left tackle in the NFL, is just having the athletic foundation to do that kind of thing. And he's a guy, obviously, very good athlete. He has over 2,500 starts at right and left tackle at Texas, so that's pretty good. I will say, in watching him, his technique's a little rough. He's got some things he can work on. When he loses bad, and that's a little scary. But he does things that you're like, not many people on the face of God's green earth can get that done. And because he's such a good athlete, he can. So for me, he's like maybe the most exciting pick or the most interesting pick, because I think you could, and I'm not exaggerating, end up with a 10 to 15 year Pro Bowl kind of player, or you end up with just, like a rotational tackle, a guy who starts for 4 or 5 seasons for you and never really ascends that next level. I think from all of the people I spoke with, offensive line coaches, scouts in the NFL, they all said he interviewed really well. He's got the right kind of work ethic. He's got like a student mentality. And I think that all of those things gets me even more excited, because if he didn't have those things, you'd say, well, it's going to be too long of a cause. But I think you got to feel really good about it. And I do think that it is definitely possible. And I'm leaning towards more likely than not. But again, you never know till the guy gets in the building and has to block NFL defensive ends.
Right. Yeah, and Logan, in the 4th round, Washington took everyone by surprise by selecting tight end John Bates. A lot of people have thought about this as a bad pick. They don't like it really because there were other tight ends available, like Brevin Jordan, for example. A lot of the fans really liked. But tell me about John Bates for you as a former tight end, being a member of this Washington football team. What can John Bates bring to this team?
So I think when you look at John Bates, it's all about fit, right? I think, Brevin Jordan was a guy I've heard a ton over the last 2 or 3 days. And I personally think Brevin Jordan was a terrible fit for the Washington football team. I think he wasn't very twitchy. He wasn't very explosive. And for his body type and his position, you basically have to be like a Jordan Reed, right? You have to be able to win versus man-to-man coverage. And I'm not sure he showed that, right? If you look at his target tape from 2019 to 2020, it's all kind of blurring together now. But I'd say roughly 40 to 50% of his targets were at or behind the line of scrimmage. So it's not like he's creating all this opportunity on his own, right? It's not like he's winning versus man or doing this tremendous job. So I personally thought that would have been a terrible pick. Not a terrible pick, because I'm sure he's a great guy, but it would have been a rough pick for the Washington football team, right? So with Bates, I think it's a much better fit, right? He's big, 6'6.5", 255. He can add 10, maybe 15 pounds to his frame. He has a really nice, intuitive understanding of how to block and how to uncoil into people, how to fit his hands, use those long arms, which I know that's not the sexiest skill set in the world, but it is a very, very valuable skill set in today's NFL. Because if you look across the college landscape, there are maybe 3 or 4 true blocking wise in the NFL. And this offense that the Washington football team does run needs a blocking Y. If you look at Carolina, Manhurst just got paid, 2-year, $7 million contract, because that position does have value. And here they get that same type of guy in the draft, and a guy who I think can play special teams. At least that's what he said on the phone when we spoke with him. And I think he also can play. He gives you something in the passing game. It's not this great linear speed, but he's got a basketball background, played basketball in high school, and when the ball's in the air, he can torch really well and kind of gets himself in the right position. Seems like he has a knack for the high point and can move to the ball in space, which is something that a lot of those tall guys don't have. I think this is a little extreme, but I think it proves a point, right? I heard someone say that Kyle Pitts is the number 1 tight end in catching the ball in the draft, and then Bates was number 2. And so I think that just gives you some context for how he tracks and moves with the ball in the air, right? He's never going to catch 40 balls in a season, but he'll give you maybe 15 to 25 or 30. And I think that is value at a blocking Y tight end position in the NFL. And I think that is a really solid career if you can do that consistently.
Now, Logan, do you think that he could be used as kind of like not an H-back, but kind of that fullback, kind of lead blocker on some plays?
So I don't personally think so. I think if you wanted to go that way, you go Tommy Tremble, for example, right? Tommy Tremble was the guy who, was the next Kyle Juszczyk, in my opinion. Right. Really dynamic in the run game in space, great hands. but I don't think the Washington football team doesn't really use a fullback. I mean, they do they use their tight end as a fullback. And I think what they really were missing in terms of that room at the moment, because they have kind of an F in Logan Thomas, an F in Sammis Reyes. They have kind of two more athletic builds. You need a guy who's going to get dirty and, give a six technique or a defensive end a really hard time. And I think that's what Bates gives you. And I hope that's what he gives you, because that's something that the offense was kind of lacking last year with Sprinkles. I think Sprinkles was playing as hard as he possibly could, but that was never his bag, right? Yeah, that was never his forte. Exactly right. So, he's moved on to greener pastures, and now they filled that role with a guy who I think, was kind of an average college player, but I think based on his frame, based on his work ethic, based on the interview that I had with him, like on draft day, I think he's got all the right characteristics to be a better pro than he was a college player. So I'm excited about the pick. Initially, I thought, oh man, there's better value here. But after watching his tape and revisiting it and going over it again, I think he's going to be a really nice fit for the Washington football team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And jump into the quarterback realm of things. A lot of the fan base was kind of, I'm not really saying mad. Well, I guess kind of some of them were mad, but a couple were upset that Justin Fields slipped out of the top 10 and you let the team behind you, like Chicago, kind of jump up ahead of you, draft him. Were you surprised they didn't make a move for Justin Fields as he slipped?
Honestly, no. I think there's a reason in my mind that Justin Fields slipped, and I think that this organization has had a tough time with Ohio State quarterbacks, and so they understand some of the weaknesses in that game, and that's not necessarily fair.
It's an understatement,
Fields, right, to say. But I'm not even exaggerating. I talked to multiple evaluators in the NFL, and they all were like, well, Ohio State quarterbacks, they have a hard time. I mean, just look at Haskins. Look at how Haskins struggled. And so that is fresh in people's minds. And I didn't talk to anybody from Washington, but I'm sure they were there firsthand for that car crash of a season. They understand what that means. And there are some issues with this game. Like, he's uber talented. He's immensely talented. And I hope that he lives up to that talent. But, there are some kind of more technical elements, like I talked about on my Instagram page, stares down receivers, holds the ball really long. Does he understand or have a good feel for pocket and when, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Those things are big in the NFL, right? And I don't know if that's the person you want to kind of yoke your franchise to, for example. You know what I mean? The guy I actually preferred was Kyle Trask, and I thought there might have been more value in terms of long-term starter there. But, I think the thing about Kyle Trask, that being said, you really question his ability to physically do it. He's got all the mental stuff. They were kind of like the opposite ends of the spectrum. One was a good decision maker, good accuracy. The other guy, very, very physically talented, but you wondered about his processing a little bit. And so I personally don't have a problem with the decision. I mean, you got to give a lot to move up and make those kind of things, and you're missing players later on. And draft equity is super important, in my opinion. We've talked about that before. So I don't have a problem with it, and I think you can kind of slow play it. Maybe next year's free agency period you can find somebody a little bit better. Maybe next year's draft looks better for you. Who knows? But I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. A lot of analysts gave us a low grade because we didn't take a quarterback, especially early. And I just don't. We filled other needs. We're good. Trust me, we can give up the farm. But transitioning to another quarterback, Kyle Shanahan.
Yes.
This was the biggest spot in the draft. Are you surprised that he took Trey Lance? And how does Trey Lance fit in that offense?
So initially I thought they traded up, and I was like, oh, this is Jones 1,000% of the time. Like, that's what Kyle loves. He loves, guys who process really well, guys you can put a ton on mentally, because that's something that if you look at his quarterbacks over the last, 10 years, they all have to be really good processors to be successful. Matt Ryan is kind of example A of that, a guy who's very intuitive, coach on the field, understands what you're trying to get done, and you can challenge him and he'll take the challenge. And so that's what I thought. I thought Jones, but then I started kind of putting the pieces together a little bit. And about a week out, I thought there's no possible way it's Jones. There's absolutely no way, because when you give up 3 first-round draft picks, you're not looking to hit a solid starter. You're looking to hit a home run. Mm-hmm. And the only person at that position that afforded that to you was Trey Lance. So, some people were trying to talk me into Fields, but I was like, Fields is processing is an issue. But when you look at Lance's tape, he processes really well. He gets through his reads. He understands a little bit of how offenses work. He works off the play action game. He's a better natural runner. He is the chance to be the next Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. A guy who had some accuracy issues and some inconsistency issues. Not a huge sample size. I think 310, 320 dropbacks, which is freaking terrifying to me. But again, if that guy lands, that's a grand slam. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if he misses, you got egg on your face. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's really important to keep in mind. And so eventually, like basically a week before, I was like, it can't be anybody else because no one is worth 3 first-round draft picks on the top end unless it's Trey Lance.
Yeah. And look, and that seemed to be right there, Logan. Now, my next question for you was the prospect Derek Forrest that Washington took in the 5th round. A lot of people have talked and speculated. Personally, from the film that I watched, Logan, I do see the free safety kind of traits. Do you think that they drafted Derek Forrest to possibly be the future free safety of this defense?
What I think you do there in the 5th round, excuse me, is you pick a guy who's got really solid teams ability, right? Someone who makes you better in that way right off the bat. Because I think as much as people want to kind of poo-poo the safety position, they played well down the stretch last year. Everett,
Jeremy Reeves was great.
Reeves, is that his name?
Reeves. Yeah,
Reeves
is fantastic.
Yeah, and then obviously Cameron Curl played lights out.
Yeah.
So I think what you do is you treat him like DeSager Everett. You get him on. You know he's going to add. He's going to make the team as a special teams kind of maverick. And, he was, I forget who said this, but he was the 2nd or 1st highest graded special teams prospect of anybody on anybody's board. So that's huge. But then you take that guy with those speed, strength, toughness qualities that make you good at teams, and you have him on the roster for a year, 2 years. And then you get a DeSager Everett, a guy who's a quality starter for you. And I think that's what you could do here. And, maybe he's ahead of schedule. Maybe he's a baller right out the gate. But I think with the new COVID kind of restrictions on the offseason, I would expect a slower trajectory because it's going to be so hard for him to come in and contribute right away. But at least being in the 5th round with that special teams value, he does bring something to the team immediately. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. And speaking of the safety position, it's been a lot of speculation this offseason. What's going to happen with Landon Collins coming off the Achilles injury? Are they going to keep him at safety? A lot of people want him to bulk up. I know he shot that down like immediately. So where do you see Landon Collins fitting in on this defense?
So I think a transition would probably be best for Landon. It's going to be extremely challenging. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying he's going to make the team or anything like that. But I think his skill set, like where he really shines his entire career is as a box player. He struggles in coverage. Like that's just how it is. He's not great in that facet of the game, but that's fine. There are safeties who are really good in the box. So why not create like a package for him? Like they did with Keanu Neal in Atlanta. Like they basically played him as like the nickel, will linebacker. So you're essentially you got coverage responsibilities, but you're in the box in the same way you would be as a safety. And Keanu did a great job, and that expands his role on the defense. And having a player who can do that is now a must in terms of the modern day NFL. People are drafting guys in the 1st round to fill that role. Yeah. So Landon obviously would still have tremendous value doing that. And it's just about whether or not he's willing to do it. And I know position changes are hard. They're terrible. It makes you uncomfortable. But if they're paying me as much as they're paying him, I definitely give it a good look. And I could probably make this happen.
Yeah. So another interesting player that wasn't drafted, but is here in Washington now is Jaret Patterson. How do you feel about Jaret Patterson, and do you think he makes this team?
That's the running back, right?
Yeah, from Buffalo.
Yes. So you look at his height, weight, speed measurements, and you kind of say, where does he fit, right? When you turn on his tape, I get a little Sproles-y kind of vibe to him, right? He's stouter than he runs stouter than his size would indicate. Not a lot of top end speed, decent blocker, but he's 5'6". You know what I mean? So there aren't many 5'6" running backs in the NFL for a reason. I've heard he's kind of got the right composition. I've heard Chase Young vouch for him, the whole thing. But I think it's going to be pretty tough for him to make the roster. I think they like him. They only brought in one undrafted free agent. It was him. You know what I mean? I think that speaks to how they feel about him. But again, there's no offseason. That's the thing that's really tough, right? There's no offseason. Right. So how is he going to impress or make an impact on these coaches if he can't play? Like, if you look at his tape, it's pretty good. I will say the one thing that stood out to me the most about watching his tape is that Buffalo offensive line.
I was just about to say that game where he rushed for 8 touchdowns, really he didn't get touched for 10 yards.
And you're kind of expecting him to be like, oh, super shifty, creating on his own. It's like, I could run straight.
That's I was
My fat ass could do it.
Yeah, Hall and I were just talking before we recorded, and I was like, that 8 touchdown game, that offensive line like had holes wide as 18-wheelers for him to run through.
I literally just watched it today and thought the same exact thing.
And that's not only that one game. Like I don't know who those guys are, but we can take a look at what they're doing.
We should get them in there.
Yeah, because every week, every game, it was like, look at the movement, look at the push. Like they were just better than the team they were going against. And he has some ability, right? I think he had the second highest broken tackle percentage in the FBS or whatever division or conference they're in. So
what happens when you're getting tackled by safeties?
Yeah, right. And you're like falling forward every time. So again, like those things, it was like I make this comparison with 100% serious. It was like evaluating Derrick Henry when he came out. Derrick Henry was just running rip shot wherever the hell he wanted because no one was touching him. The Alabama line was so good. So you're like, well, how good is he really? And I feel like I'm saying that now, but about a kid from Buffalo. So like that's not exactly like what I want to be saying. I want to be saying, oh, this guy has like some natural running back vision and traits and things that make you excited. But I didn't leave the film session going like, yeah. I was like, I don't know. And so I think that's the thing with him is like he obviously has some natural ability, but where is that in terms of how good that offensive line was and the scheme that he was in?
Right. He also has the exact opposite physical tools of Derrick Henry.
That's exactly right.
So he doesn't even have that going for him.
Unfortunate. Now, Logan, somebody you've been working out with on the side, very familiar for us Washington fans, is Sammis Reyes, the new tight end. Can you kind of give us an update on Sammis? And on top of an update on Sammis, from what you can see, what does Sammis need to work on, and what does he bring that makes it easy, the transition to tight end easy for him?
So I think let's start with your last question first. I think the thing that makes it easy for him is that he's 6'7", 260 pounds, is a 40-inch vertical. Like he's literally someone asked me this, is he the physically the most freaky person you've ever seen? And I played the NFL for 10 years. I've seen some very freaky people, and I'd say he's top 5. Like he is extremely unique in terms of his athletic skill set.
And that's not just that tight end. That's
everybody. I played with like Julio Jones and Trent Williams, and those guys are on the list, right? So he's in there somewhere. Anyway, so I think the thing about him is that he's super smart. He's learned multiple languages. He's an econ major. He is the kind of nicest. Did you guys have him on the show?
No, not yet. No,
not yet. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, very nice, very hardworking, very diligent. So, and he's very impressive just when you talk to him. So that's encouraging to me, right? He knows how to learn. He knows how to study. I will say the last time I met with him, which was last week, he was swimming in terms of understanding what offensive installation was going on. Because it's the first time he's ever been exposed to the detail and nuance of the NFL game. First time he's ever been exposed to football. So I think, I've worked with a lot of guys who have transitioned from a different sport to football, and that to me is usually the most drastic hiccup. Is just all those little things that you take for granted as people knowing, like, oh, the tight end lines up here, or the tight end lines up in this kind of stance, or this is how you get in a 3-point stance, or this is your footwork on a run play. Like it's different than when you run a route. Like all of those things you cannot take for granted when coaching up a guy who's new to the sport, new to the position. And I think that to me, just in and of it, like by itself, regardless of him, is the most challenging thing to learn. And so I think it's especially challenging for him because he has like zero exposure to the game. Right. I think the most he's done with football is this year, and it was in, compression shorts and a tight shirt, and he ran at Florida's Pro Day. So just to give you some context.
Right. And sticking with the tight end position, obviously Atlanta took Kyle Pitts at number 4. How is he going to fit into Atlanta's offense with new head coach Arthur Smith down there? I know he used Johnny Smith pretty nicely down in Tennessee. And did you see him being that kind of generational talent that everyone's been talking about?
Yeah. I mean, he was literally – so I watch tight ends every year, watch the top 10 every year since I've been playing. And best guy that I've evaluated. So I called my buddy who's been a tight end coach for 35 years, and he said far and away – the best guy he's evaluated.
Wow.
He is like when you turn on the tape, I've never seen anything like it. Like he beat J.C. Horn, he beat Patrick Surtain, and then the next play he comes into the line and drive blocks a 6 technique, like explosively moves him off the ball, and you're just like, holy cow! Like this guy is a mutant freak, and he's fast, he's strong. I don't know if he's strong, but he's wired like quick twitch and explosively, and so he can block people. And so Yeah, man, he's a terrifying proposition. Like, I just don't know how you match him. Like, if he's on the field, like usually because he can block, so
Right.
you match him in base defense, and then you explode the formation, and he plays X receiver, and you've got some poor linebacker trying to guard him. Like, what do you like defensively? Like, what do you do? It just depends on how much they can give him out of the gate in this kind of abridged, restricted offseason. Because, I mean, I cannot say enough in terms of how impressed I was with regards to watching his tape. Like, sometimes you got to labor through 3 games on a guy because you're like, I kind of get it, but let's just go. You love watching every second of his tape because you're just like, what is he going to do? Like, how are they going to use him? Like, oh, there he is. He's beating this route. Look at this corner post. Like, look at him moss this guy. And you're just like, and then look at this block. Like, you just every single time, like, look at this pass protection. Every single play, you're like, this is special. And I'm not saying that lightly, but again, like, he has to go through the process like everybody else. Like, we've seen good players before stumble and fall and get egg on their face. I hope that doesn't happen for him because I want to see where this goes. But you never know. He's got to do all the work, put the work in, and be the player we all think he can be.
Yeah. He's it's not even fair. It's just he's like a Madden character.
Yeah.
So back to the Washington football team. I really want to know your opinions on Dyami Brown and what Washington fans can expect to him. Maybe a player comparison.
Yeah, so it's interesting when I was watching Dyami, I was not as impressed as I thought I was going to be. And I'm not saying that critically. I just had really high expectations. Everything I was reading about him was like,
thanks, Chris Sims.
Yeah, bottom of the first, early second, all of these different things. I think he's very, very good. Don't get me wrong. I think he's really good. He has this tremendous ability to just make big plays. Like, he led the FBS and plays over 50 yards as a receiver last year. Like, and it's not like he's good at running routes, right? But he also has this, like, when the ball's in the air, like, I feel like it's his ball. Like, he is going to fight, claw, scratch. There's a couple plays of him, like, falling over, the guy tackling him, and he manages to track the ball and catch it.
One-handed catch, yeah.
Yes, making tremendous plays like that. He played a lot on the left side, so you worry about his flexibility. I think that's one of the things that kind of pushed him down boards a little bit. But and he didn't run, I think, as well as people hoped he would run. I mean, we're in an era now where you're saying 4.46 is slow, but like, that's something to consider. A lot of people said Terry was a good comp for him, and I can see why they say that. To me, he's a little leaner than Terry, like a little thinner. And he plays strong like Terry, but it's just a different type. Like, he's got a little bit more track runner to him.
It's almost like Terry and Paul Richardson's body.
Yes, I love that comparison. Yeah, that's really nice. Kind of a slider build. Yeah, I mean, you should do a draft evals. You should go leave the Burgundy zone. Let's go. But yeah, so that kind of thing, like a little thinner, plays strong, longer, a little rangier. I don't know if he's like Terry had that like special teams, like blocking, toughness, grittiness to his game, which I didn't see as much, but I think he's a tough player. I think he does block, but it's just not the same like violent. You know what I mean? He has he does all that stuff, but Terry is exceptional at that. I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right.
And I have only 2 more questions for you, Logan. So the first one I'm going to ask you is Shaka Toney and Will Bradley King, 2 of the 7th round edge rushers that Washington took. I watched their film last night. I want to get your thoughts on those 2 prospects.
So I only watched Toney at the Senior Bowl.
Okay.
And I was impressed. I think he's got some good get off. I think he's undersized. I think he's like 6'1" or 6. He's very small, very short. He's like 235 pounds. He is a specialist. He's a pass rush specialist, which I think, I don't know where his role is at the moment, right? If I was the Washington football team, I would have said, yes, you want some guy who brings some juice in the pass rush, but also I think you want guys on 1st and 2nd down that can allow your horses, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, to really excel in those money down situations, right? Those are your stallions, right? And I think they give you some rotational depth, which is good, right? I think that's awesome. But I just think the body type there kind of limits what he does. I think he gives you good special teams value. And then I didn't watch the kid from Baylor yet because I'm going through everybody else. But again, great RAS score, like one of the highest at the position. You see the explosive traits and the limited stuff that I have watched. And I think those are all good things. You wanted, like, one of the things about Ryan Anderson that I think really was deleterious long term for him is that he wasn't super twitched up.
Yeah.
And I think the game is moving in that direction. So if you have guys who can move and are explosive, those create mismatch problems because the game is now more about movement as opposed to like smashing someone in the face. So I think these two guys kind of fit that model. They are a little bit kind of land of misfit toys in terms of like where they actually fit and the role they're going to take. Because to me, they're pass rush specialists, but you have two good pass rushers already. Right. So in my opinion, you want a guy who is a little bit bigger, a little bit slower for first and second down. But I understand why they went this direction. And I think there's good value here. In terms of pressures, I think Tony was very productive in college, if I remember correctly. And so I think good stuff, all good things. It'll just be interesting. I think you get good special teams value from both of them right away. And then it's up to them to kind of carve out a role.
Yeah, in that Tampa Bay game, you could definitely see that the backups were not doing the defense justice when Chase Young and Montez went out. And then to wrap this up, Logan, my last question for you. Right before the draft, Washington football team, they went out and they traded for Eric Flowers. They swapped 7th-round picks with Miami Dolphins. He's coming back to Washington. Right. Now knowing drafting Sammy Cosmi in the 2nd, having Eric Flowers being brought back here, what do you think is going to happen with this offensive line? What would you project to be the starters week 1?
Yeah, I think that's really tough. I think, Wes Schweitzer had a really good year last year in the run game. I think from what I've heard, people weren't super happy in the building with how he was as a pass protector. And I think Flowers, because of his tackle background, gives you a little bit more in terms of protection. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and I also think this is a contingency, honestly, long-term for Sheriff, if I'm being totally honest. I think Sheriff, from what I've heard and talked with people, I haven't talked to Sheriff directly, so I don't know this for sure. But I think he wants out of Washington. I think he wants to go to a different opportunity. I think he's kind of, I don't know, he's over the franchise, but just based on the deal they offered him and his response to the deal, I think he's probably ready to move on. And he's got to make the decision that's right for him and his family. So I think this is, whatever happens with him, but I think this is a contingency if they can't get him back following this next season. And I hope he is back. I think it's great for the Washington football team. I think he's maybe 1A, 1B guard in the NFL next to Quentin Nelson. So it'd be a really tough thing to let him go, especially with how he's been playing the last couple of years. But, those things happen and you got to kind of plan for it. So.
Yep, it is what it is. It's the NFL, not for long, right, Logan? Yeah. I can't thank you enough for taking time out again to be able to join us, Logan. You bring us great insight. My father-in-law loves it when you come on. It's his favorite episode. I can't thank you enough, sir. And again, guys, if you haven't already, if you're on Instagram, go and follow Logan Paulsen at Logan_Paulsen82.
Dude, guys, thank you so much. I feel like it's getting better each time I come on, man. You guys are killing it.
I know. It's because of you, Logan. That's all it is. We just come up with you, brother.
We're just riding your wave.
Exactly. Hey, Logan, I can't thank you enough, sir. Until next time, I really appreciate it. I hope you have a good night and continue kicking butt, dude.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And good luck with the rest of the podcast.
Thank you, Logan. I appreciate it.
Take it easy, man.
You guys.
All right, everybody. We were just spoke with Logan Paulsen. That was
how many people do you know that can be like, Jaret Patterson, that's the running back, not even sure of his name, and then rattle off like 50 attributes that he has and strengths and weaknesses that tell you everything about the guy. Like, the guy is just a freak when it comes to scouting.
Yeah,
he's so good.
By far one of my favorite guys.
Dude, really, he's a freak of nature. He really is. Logan is. Yeah. The funny thing is that Sammis, he talks about the mental game and that being the hardest hardest mountain for Sammis to climb in transitioning to the pros. There's nobody smarter than Logan Paulsen he could be getting tips from. That's the perfect kind of trainer that you want if you're Sammis Reyes. Yeah. And he's smart for doing that. Now, guys, let's get into our fan questions, and we got some really, really good ones. The first one we're going to go with is from the Colonel. He says, it's a discussion. The last pick in the draft is Mr. Irrelevant. He was projected 3 slots ahead of Jamin Davis. How the hell did you 3 hosts project him at 19? I'll start with you, Reed.
The Mr. Irrelevant was projected 3 spots in front of?
Yeah. So he uses like a draft magazine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So that was written when Jamin Davis first declared.
Yes.
That was, I remember when he first came out. Apparently, he was supposed to be like a 4th, 5th rounder, if that. But then when scouts really started taking notice of him and turned on his tape, and then the pro day, and he just crushed it. They were like, "Oh, wait a minute, this guy's more than just a guy who produced it in one season. Like, this guy's actually a legit linebacker." So yes. I think that's why you kind of saw him start to rise towards the end, or towards the second half of the draft process, and then he really, really started gaining momentum over the last like 3 weeks or so. Like, we talked about him all the time. We picked him in the mock draft that we did before,
and that's what he's talking about. He's saying, this guy was projected in like the 7th round. How the hell did you guys pick him in your mock draft? Because he was kind of blown away by that. Like, how did you guys know that? But it was just reading the tea leaves, honestly. That's
and
all.
Also, it wasn't all us. A lot of scouting places had started to put him higher and higher, and then we're like, oh shit. Well, I mean, yeah, he is good. So
Honestly, Colonel, it wasn't until his pro day when he really took the step up. 11-foot broad jump, a 42-inch vertical, running a 4.41 40. It really showcased, sitting at 6'4", 230 pounds. That just tells you explosion. And then on top of that, he's raw at the linebacker spot. The coaching staff at Kentucky liked the guy that was ahead of him, so he didn't get that much playing time. It wasn't until that guy left where he got put up in the starting role, and they really started to see what the heck was going on. Because it was a former pro left linebacker that was coaching him. It was like, oh my goodness, this guy is legit.
Right.
That is why we kind of went with it, because we were kind of putting 2 and 2 together. We kind of realized with the military background, the hard work ethic, it just fit the mold. And plus, we didn't think it
linebacker.
We didn't think, because each of these linebackers had like their own niche, right? Like Landon Collins is like a cover linebacker that can pass rush really well, right? Jock is a safety kind of hybrid that can lock down the slot. He can line up on tight ends and stuff like that, but he can't be in the box. You know what I mean? Jamin Davis was the most surefire linebacker at that spot that they could have chosen from, in my personal opinion. And that's why it made sense for us. Because it's sitting at 19, Ron Rivera even talked about in his press conference that they had gotten calls to trade back. But I honestly believe that they were nervous about losing out on Jamin if they traded back. And so if you're nervous about going back, losing out on Jamin, he's already worth that 19th pick at that point, because you're already worried about losing him. So go ahead and take him with that 19th. And that's why I love the pick, personally.
Yeah, and just to add on a little bit, I feel like it's kind of that Cameron Curl situation where you're coming from an SEC team in Arkansas like Cameron Curl was, and obviously Arkansas is really not that good, and you're not supposed to really scout the team and scout the helmet, but you're supposed to scout the name on the back of the jersey. So that's how someone like Cameron Curl falls through the cracks all the way to the 7th round and becomes a rising star in the NFL for Washington. Kind of like Jamin Davis, where you're at Kentucky, you're in the SEC, your team's getting pummeled every week. You're not going to really stand out. It's kind of like is that guy a good player on a bad team, or is he a good player just overall in general?
Right.
So once the draft process started coming along, like Reed said, the last 2 to 3 weeks, scouts really looked at the numbers and looked at his pro day and looked at his tape and were like, yeah, that guy's definitely a first rounder, a mid to back half first rounder. So like you said, just reading the tea leaves and knowing that the character background that he has, it was almost like it was an A+ fit in my opinion.
Yeah. It makes a whole lot of sense.
Also, let's not beat around the bush. I'm also kind of like God, like in a way. So I think that's why I had a lot of input on everything, I think.
It made a lot of sense. There was a lot of avenues they could have gone down. And everyone's been talking about, Christian Darrisaw, blah, blah, blah. I think that they knocked it out of the park there with that Jamin Davis pick, to be perfectly honest with you. Mm-hmm. Because like on top of him having the military background, on having the work ethic, on having the explosion at his pro day, he's also raw. So now he can learn from 2 great coaches in Ron Rivera, Steve Russ, and Jack Del Rio on being a linebacker. He was already showing that explosion. He has the work ethic. He's very smart. You combine those, and you have yourself a superstar and cornerstone at that middle linebacker spot. It's a shoe-in, perfect fit for the Washington football team. Now, Colonel's next question was, how scared should we be of the 2021 New York Giants offense? Reed.
I don't know why more people aren't talking about the Giants. Like, look, I never understood why so many people were like, they need to take a wide receiver first round, like after they signed Kenny Galladay, because I mean, they still had Sterling Shepard, they still had Darius Slayton, who's still good, like they're 3 deep, but the Kadarius Toney draft pick, I mean, that was a pretty, I like that fit a lot. Like, they have so many weapons on offense. It just all comes down to Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones has been really good at times. He's been very good. He's also been very, very bad. Yeah. So it's tough to say, but their defense is also really good. I think the Giants are a very, very good team, and they're really not far off from winning this division. I could easily see them winning this division. I don't think that they will because us, but
they're built very well. Kadarius Toney actually probably goes to a very good situation because Daniel Jones isn't needing to throw the ball downfield to get him the ball. Right. They can motion him in the backfield off of handoffs and jet sweeps and stuff like that. That's where it fits Daniel Jones. And also, you have to think about it. You're right, Colonel. everyone's going to be looking at Saquon Barkley in that backfield. And now you have to worry about Kadarius Toney over the top and getting the football. Obviously, that is worrisome, but I'm not too worried about the Giants' offense, dude. As long as you got 99 on the other side, we're good to go. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I kind of like the Kadarius Toney pick, but I don't really see where he fits in this offense. Like, I mean, I guess long term, yes, down the road, but
I think he's just different than the other receivers. That's why.
Yeah, I know. He's more twitchy. He's more like a speed guy. You can line him up everywhere. He'll eventually probably take over Sterling Shepard's spot in the slot. But I'm just saying, like, in the short term right now, I don't know where he fits in. Like, and like, how does he get into the rotation? But obviously, they're going to try to work him in somehow. As far as the Giants' offense going into next year, I have more confidence in our defense. And what I will say is where Kadarius Toney does fit in is if you look at Daniel Jones, he's a turnover machine. In 36 career games, he has 21 career games, he has 36 turnovers, 21 interceptions, 15 fumbles lost. That's not even including the fumbles that he lost and recovered or dropped and recovered.
Right.
So, I mean, like I said, the Kadarius Toney makes sense. So you want to get everything out quick, short, like line of scrimmage type stuff, screens and stuff like that. Obviously, Saquon Barkley coming back, Kenny Galladay on the outside is going to help out. But at the end of the day, I feel like we just got Jamin Davis to counteract the Kyle Rudolph, Evan Ingram, kind of Saquon Barkley up the backfield thing. We got William Jackson to counteract Kenny Galladay. So I kind of just feel like we're sewed up on our defensive end, and I have more confidence in our defense and their offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can you trust somebody who's fumbled 15 times like that to handle the ball every play?
All these national analysts are like, "Oh, the Giants are dark horse. The Giants are a dark horse team." Daniel Jones. I'm just like, for people to try to go on Ryan Fitzpatrick for being a turnover machine,
right?
Over a 20-year span or whatever it's been, a guy that's done it for 3 years. You're not going to get on him. You have more confidence in him. I don't understand that, but hey, what do I know?
I will say Daniel Jones has killed us.
Yeah. Well, what quarterback has?
I mean, Kyle Allen having a fumble return for a touchdown. I mean, that was.
Yeah. Exactly. He didn't really kill us that game. Yeah. Right.
I mean, with his legs, he does. He always.
Yeah. Exactly.
He did that to a lot of people last year, though. I will say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, Hall, let's stay with you. Orange Crush wants to know: do you think Ron Rivera is still looking at Trey Boston?
Maybe it could definitely be a possibility. I know that a lot of these unrestricted free agents, now that the compensatory pick formula is like gone and past, a lot of these guys are going to start signing with places, flying off the board. What I was reading on Twitter is I think Ron Rivera said that not right now. They're going to go with the in-house guys like the Jeremy Reeves of the world, obviously Cam Curl. They want to see what they have in Landon Collins. But, I mean, if he remains unsigned going into OTAs or training camp, I could definitely see them kicking the cans on him just as not even a starter, as a depth guy.
Yeah, I do think that Ron Rivera has Trey Boston in the back of his head, Orange Crush. But I think it's going to come down to it being like a necessary situation. When they look at the depth chart, they're able to see Derek Forrest in person, and be able to see DeSazer and then with Jeremy Reeves as well. Obviously, you have that in the back pocket. You never know what's going to come down. And obviously, we've seen with the Eric Flowers move, with how many people they brought in with Dax Milne and Dyami Brown, with Curtis Samuel, Adam Humphries. They really are stockpiling these positions. So it wouldn't surprise me that they go do and pluck Trey Boston and plug him in for depth and for competition, because obviously he is necessary. He would be good. Obviously, he didn't have that great of a year by Pro Football Focus last year, but that wasn't in Ron Rivera's defense. When he was in Ron Rivera's defense, he was grading out very well. Good chance he could be able to come here and be a veteran presence. So I do think he's in the back of his mind. I think it's more along the lines of, if we need to, we will pull that trigger.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree, so I'll keep it short. Yeah, like you said, I think it's always in his back pocket. If people underperform or somebody gets hurt and he's still out there, then I think it's Rivera will be like, yep, all right, come on down the aisle, my guy. But if not, I mean, I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, and we have a great question from our big fan, Mark Baxter, who actually helped us out with our mock drafts. He wants to know, Derek Forrest fits in the same mold as Cam Curl and Landon Collins. Is he Collins' replacement after this year? Reed?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. My headphones cut out.
Derek Forrest, it fits in the same mold as Cam Curl and Landon Collins. Is he Collins' replacement after this year?
I don't think so. I think he's a little bit better in coverage. I know he's had his issues, but he's smaller than both of those guys. I don't think so. I think that you will definitely see him playing with Cam Curl. I think that the plan is right now they're hoping maybe that Derek Forrest can take over opposite Cam Curl. But I think that if he does pan out a little bit for the first season, you'll see a lot of 3 safety, like Logan said. Like they'll find a special position for Landon. I don't think he's going to take over for Landon because I just think he's a little bit he's different. He's very good against the run, just like Landon, but they're built different. You got to use him in a different way in the NFL.
Yeah, Mark, I see something completely different. I do see I do see Derek as being more as a free safety. So at the time being, I don't see him as Collins' replacement. I see him being as that kind of filler at free. If they need to plug him in, maybe the third safety on the depth chart to move him around, whatever need be. But I don't see him replacing Collins because Cam Curl's replacing Collins. If we're going to be honest with ourselves, that already happened.
Right.
It's just Derek Forrest contributing and him running a 4.38 40. Like Logan said, it speaks to him being a special teams ace and why one of the reasons why he was the top special teamers in this draft. It makes a whole lot of sense. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, just I think he's going to contribute on special teams. He's going to be one of our big special teams guys. I know the special teams coach talked to him directly, and they really wanted him, so they drafted him for the special teams coach. So, like you said, I definitely think that Cam Curl is kind of not really taking Landon Collins' job, but it's Cam Curl's job, you know.
Yeah.
So, like I think they're going to have a lot of 3 safety sets. Like Logan said, they're going to hopefully, if they don't make that after June 1st cut, because I know they can recoup some of that salary or cap hit after June 1st, but I don't see them really doing that either. I think that, like Logan said, they're going to find a way to get him in sub packages and work him in onto the field because at the end of the day, you're paying him all that money. You got to get him on the field.
Exactly. And that's how I felt about the whole Landon Collins situation from the start. Something needs to happen. You can't just stay on the sideline getting paid that much money. They're going to force the issue. Now, our next question is from Scott Hartley. He wants to know, with the draft over, what positions, if any, does the team need to address with what's left in free agency, Hall?
I want them to go out and take a big old Mark McGuire size swing on my man KJ Wright out in Seattle. He's still out there on the market. I think you plug him into this defense, that elevates this defense from a top 5 defense to possibly a top 3 to top 2 defense. And again, that's a guy who's been in the league forever. He was one of the catalysts behind that Seattle defense. He still has a lot of good football. A couple good years of football left in him. He's getting up there in age a little bit, but he still has a couple good years of football left in him. And I definitely think that with Jamin Davis being so young, he can kind of come in and learn from KJ Wright how to be the defensive captain type of guy. Even though Jamin Davis, from all accounts, can be that guy coming in. But I just think KJ Wright is one guy that I would definitely try to take a swing on. And again, he can come in and can plug and play, contribute from day one, and make this defense put him way over the top.
Yeah, and I had just talked about earlier how they're kind of like log jamming all of these positions, offensive line, wide receiver, corner, and safety and stuff like that. They haven't done that at linebacker. And so I would love to see KJ Wright or a guy like Quan Alexander added to the room. Just that veteran depth that you can bring in, is not going to be out of position, is going to play the job well, is going to know what you're asking him to do, but you're also not paying over a crazy amount of money to bring him in. This is somebody who can come in and contribute and help with depth. So for me, Scott, it's linebacker just like Hall, but I'm going to go with Quan Alexander just so I'm different. What do you read?
Linebacker is one of them for sure. And even though they drafted 2 of these guys, I still think that a backup edge rusher is still very important just because you don't know how these rookies are going to play. You have no idea how
Ryan Kerrigan.
So exactly, bring in a veteran. I was just about to say, like Ryan Kerrigan, if he wants to come back, come on down, my brother, because we will gladly take you. And so I'm going to go with edge rusher, backup edge rusher.
And let's stay with Scott Hartley and you, Reed. He said, does the uncertainty of a certain number 12 in the green and yellow wanting a move, if forced through, do you see him landing here or another quarterback carousel where other quarterbacks move around and we hit a free agent? Are you happy with rolling with Fitzmagic?
Am I happy? I am. Yeah, I mean, I like Fitzpatrick. I don't think that we will go after Aaron Rodgers. I think that no matter what, if he's available, your team is going to take a look at him. Do I think it'll happen? No. Do I want it to happen? 100% yes. I don't care how much draft you have to give up for him. If this team can win a Super Bowl within the next 2 years, 3 years, 100% do it. I don't want to wait for some rookie who could possibly be a bust. You have an Aaron Rodgers. The whole reason that you play football is to win. If you can win a Super Bowl with this guy, go do it, please. There's nothing I want more in life than to watch the Washington football team win a Super Bowl. So if that ever happened, yes. And if you say no, then I'm sorry, but you're a loser. You don't win. Right? You don't play to win. You're a loser.
To win.
And you're also, and I respect your opinion, but you're wrong. So, but no, I don't think that it'll happen. But I would love to get Aaron Rodgers. I know that's probably not going to be a lot of popular because people are all stingy with their draft picks. Like, no, I'm not handing these out. You do if you can get an Aaron Rodgers, because that guy will put this team over the edge. I will tell you that right now. This is a playoff caliber roster, regardless. Put that quarterback.
Yeah. Look, Steven Johnson tagged us on Twitter today, and this one, it was this one column saying one of the top 5 teams that could trade for Aaron, and they put a scenario where Washington could trade for him, and it was next year's first, next year's second and third, and then 2023's first round and second round. And my thought process was that first round of 2023, I would not want to mortgage that. Reed, I know you obviously feel different. The one issue that I have is that when you have these guys leaving possibly, and Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen coming up and Terry McLaurin coming up as well, with all of these deals, you're going to need those high-value picks in order to keep changing of the guard, because you're not going to be able to pay everybody, right? People are going to walk. So you need those first-rounders for the cheap relief for the guys that leave that you can't pay. Sending those out for Aaron could put you in a bad situation if you don't get there. But I understand, Reed. We're trying to win the Super Bowl. I get it.
I was about to say, yeah. In my opinion, if you win a Super Bowl, it doesn't even matter. I don't care. Yeah. I'll suck for a few years. I don't care. We win a Super Bowl, worth it.
Scott, I do not see it happening, but I will say I am happy with Fitzmagic. Bring in Dyami Brown, Curtis Samuel. It makes a whole lot of sense with this offense. Fitzmagic is the perfect kind of quarterback you want, that gunslinger throwing it downfield. It's going to open up a lot of things to this offense. We're going to see a completely different offense here in 2021.
Yeah. First of all, do I think they're going to do it? Probably not, because I think they're pretty sewed up on the quarterback room as of right now. If they were going to do a quarterback move, would have made it in the draft and move up to get one of these young guys or draft a young guy later. Would I want them to make a move? I would probably say yes, only for the simple fact of, like Reed said, he would literally put us over the edge. We would be legit Super Bowl contenders, and we'd have a probably 2 to 3 year window of possibly getting into a Super Bowl in all 3 of those years, or one of those 3 years. So, with that being said, at the same time, it's kind of like I am happy with Fitzpatrick. I do think he's kind of the perfect fit for this offense, and I think that he's going to push the ball down the field. I think he's going to do what Scott Turner wants to do, which is work the seams and kind of work the tight ends and then throw it deep whenever you got the shots open. But with that being said, I'm calling it right now. I'm taking my shot, Babe Ruth style. Derek Carr will be here next year, 2022. Oh,
God, do not bring my twin here.
Can I say something real fast about the Aaron Rodgers situation?
No.
No, the draft pick thing, we're too good. In my opinion, we're a good team. So we're not going to be picking that high anyway. We're going to have to trade up to get one of those quarterbacks regardless. So if you can guarantee you get an Aaron Rodgers, even if it's for a few years, go for it. Because I just think that there's no sure thing in the NFL draft.
Well, also,
think about how much it costed for us to trade up to get RG3. I would imagine we'd have to trade into the top 5 to get one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah. And Ron Rivera last night said that it's not out the question that if Fitzpatrick plays good, he'll be back here next year on another 1-year contract. So, look, I've heard this on the Junkies. My man Cakes said this numerous times. He doesn't think that Rivera's going to draft a quarterback early or find his guy at any point of his tenure here. He's just going to keep getting these veteran guys, because if your team is in win now mode, or like you have a playoff caliber team,
right?
Why spend time grooming a rookie, throwing an unproven rookie out there that you don't know what you're going to get out of him, when you can already have a proven guy, a veteran guy come in and just kind of keep retooling, reloading every single year.
Exactly. Yeah, we said that from the jump, especially last year, because people would ask us, is this considered a rebuild year for Rivera? And we said, no, it's a renovation year. They don't need to start from the ground up. They have the pieces in place that they are. And so the credit to your point, Hall, you're absolutely right on getting a veteran quarterback, because you don't need to waste that time. He's ready to go, stepping in Tampa Bay style, trying to mimic what they're doing, obviously getting their Super Bowl. Now, the next question is from Tony Shivers. He wants to know, Hall, who of the day 3 picks do you think will make an impact this season?
Ooh, it's probably the easiest one because he's the only one at his position. I'll go the cheese man.
That's such an easy one.
I know, but no, I'll go someone else. I'll go
cheese.
That's a hard one.
Didn't we lock you in a dumpster one time? I got out. No, it's from old school, man.
Yeah, no. I took.
I got it. I understood it.
Took me a while. I was about to be like, fuck no, I'm going to the dumpster.
Not since high school.
Right. That's a tough one. I'll probably go one of the edge rushers just because they can step in. I'm not going to say right away, but they can probably contribute at some point throughout the season if they can work themselves into the rotation, relieve Montez Sweat or Chase Young. Because as of right now, I know they have Smith Williams from NC State, the guy they drafted last year, as the only other edge rusher on the team right now, other than the two guys they drafted. So I'd probably go Shaka Toney if I had to pick one of the day 3 guys.
Now, I'm going to go with Dax Milne. The reason why I think it's Dax, I watched his film last night just to freshen up. I watched it before, but I really wanted to go in with detail and look at him. I don't want to seem like a homer. I don't want to seem crazy. But when I watch his film, he reminds me a lot of Adam Thielen. The way that he plays, deep downfield, he has a great catching ability, kind of has this fluid, kind of easy way of running his routes, and he just always has a knack for finding the football, being open downfield and coming down with it. I kind of get that feeling from Adam Thielen, and this team with the uncertainty at wide receiver, they're going to be throwing a lot of things at the wall. They're going to see who's reliable and who's not. For that reason, I think Dax Milne will stick in this offense this season. I think he will make an impact bigger than we expect. I think Dyami Brown obviously will do great, but we're talking about day 3, so I do think Dax will have an impact.
Yeah, I like Dax a lot. A lot of people were questioning that pick. I really liked it. I'm going to go with John Bates. I think John Bates is going to have the most opportunities because I think he could honestly just come in there and be the number 2 tight end right off break. I mean, like Logan said, he's very good once you watch tape on him. Like he's underused. Yeah, very underutilized. His stats don't necessarily back it up, but he's very good. So I'll say immediately John Bates. However, long term, I will go with Derek Forrest.
It was Todd McShay that said he had him as his second best tight end or pass catching tight end in the draft. So.
Oh wow!
That was Todd McShay.
Dot.
Before we get out of here, guys, do you guys want to give I have a what is your grade for the draft in its entirety? Do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I'll give him an A- just because. Again, we were talking before we started recording. Obviously, I understand Cosmi at the 2nd round pick. I love the pick. I think he's going to be, like Logan said, potential to be either that 4 to 5 year guy. You can kind of plug and play rotational guy, or it can be that next guy that's going to stay here for kind of that Trent Williams tenure, 9-10 years. But with that being said, I wanted Pat Freiermuth at number pick 51. He was right there for the taking. The Steelers came and took him a couple picks later. I had to deal with Gavin's yelling, going crazy ass for sitting right next to me. That shit was annoying. But like I said, obviously left tackle is way more valuable than tight end. I do think John Bates is going to come in and contribute and definitely not be like Logan Thomas status, but like a poor man's Logan Thomas. So I'll give him an A-.
For me, I give them a B+. I thought they did very, very well, especially with Jamin Davis. They kind of solidified their linebacking core there. They needed somebody that could play all 3 spots. I feel so much better about this linebacking unit now than I did if they were to have drafted Zaven or Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, because they still have other elements of their game that doesn't transition to 4-3 very well. Jamin does. So I love that pick. And then with Dyami Brown, they were one of the worst teams in the league last year of pushing the ball downfield. Adding him on here with Ryan Fitzpatrick was a perfect fit. It was a great pick, fantastic value for a kid that is like a bigger version of Deshaun Jackson almost. I love the way that he plays the game, but I would have given them an A if it was Jackson Carman, not Sam Cosmi. You know it's coming.
We knew it.
Yeah. No, but seriously, Sam Cosmi, I loved that pick. The dude's sitting at 6'7", 309 pounds. Got to add a little bit more weight. He's got some fundamental issues. His footwork isn't the best. He's susceptible to get beat inside that I saw a lot. But in the run game, he does a good job of getting to the second level, pushing guys over, and running the football. So I like the pick of Sam Cosmi, and it wouldn't surprise me if Sam Cosmi was possibly starting the season at left tackle.
Yeah. And a quick little note on Dyami Brown. Washington's depth of target to the wide receivers last year, 6.2 yards.
Yep.
His average depth of target last year, 20.2 yards.
Jesus Christ.
He's about to put in work.
Oh yeah. I loved our draft. I mean, you said what, a B+, and Hall, you said A-. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to be a homer. I'm going to go with an A. If you look at it, they did exactly what we wanted them to do early on in the draft, since it was a deep tackle class, kind of get that linebacker.
It would have been an A- if it wasn't for the cheese man.
Hey, but I understand why they did that now.
Me too.
I mean,
100%.
It makes sense.
I mean, at this point, who's gonna cut the cheese, right?
Get
Ah.
out, leave, be gone.
Bye.
Go. I love that. I think that they like a lot of times you see teams draft and you'll be like, why did we take what's his face in round 3? We already have 4 of those, but we really did a good job of solidifying needs and going and best player available and getting positions of need and guys that could eventually make an impact on this team. So I mean, I love our first 4 picks. I like Benjamin St. Juste. I think it was a little bit early for him, but I really like his potential. He's somebody who I've looked at for a while and thought that this guy, I mean, if he can get in the right coaching and on the right team, he could be very good. I like a lot of our day 3 picks. I love day 1. And I just think that people like Mel Kiper Jr., who looks like an owl, I don't give a hoot. He's just it's so dumb. Did you read his article? Mel Kiper said that he gave us a terrible grade because we didn't take a quarterback. We took a linebacker early, and linebacker wasn't in need. Do you even study the team? What? Do you even study?
That's
teams, bro? That's literally was our biggest thing.
I love what the Washington Wizards are doing, man. Thomas Bryant, those boys out there.
Right.
Thomas Bryant hasn't played since January.
Right.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
And I will say about the draft, when you look at it from the outside looking in, in the first round, they go and they get the linebacker that is best fit for their defense, right? He's explosive. He has a great background. Second round, they start seeing the run on tackles. Walker Little gets drafted way before anyone had expected. Jackson Carman goes to Cincinnati. The tackle class was really starting to diminish, so they said, okay, now is the time to pounce. We got to get our tackle. Third round, they get their guy first with Benjamin St. Juste. He was at the pro day at the Senior Bowl. They got to see a lot of film on him. And then with that second or the third pick, they went wide receiver and they got speed at a position and somebody they needed to cap off the top end of the defense. It was perfect. And so when you look at it from that aspect, I thought they did a great job. They saw how things were shifting, especially with long snapper. They saw a long snapper go to Carolina and said, okay, we got to pounce now. So they went and got their guy. I loved their draft philosophy. I love the way that they did it. B+ for me personally.
Honestly, realistically, I would have went B+ too. It's just I wanted to be a little bit different.
I know.
But no, yeah, I do actually like this draft class a lot.
Me too.
So I will say that. And Jamin Davis, I think the Dyami Brown pick, like I've been saying for a long time, they need to double up a receiver because Adam Humphries, like everybody, I know but it's Adam Humphries. Like, come on, be realistic. Don't be hammered about this. And I just think Dyami Brown is a perfect fit here. I think he could do so well. So I like it.
Absolutely. All right, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You're good.
No, I was just gonna say that they drafted a lot of guys that were character guys that fit the culture.
That are
and
athletic
then they looked at okay, how do they fit our scheme? How do they fit our football? So it's really refreshing to like see where the old regime would kind of just be like, you know what, Darius Geis has kind of a lot of question marks, but we're gonna take him anyway.
Right.
You see how that pans out. So
you know what, man, I really love that Trey Quinn, man. Let's make him our last pick, man.
I will say, dude, if it was the last regime, they probably would have traded up for a quarterback. I'm just being perfectly honest. And
100%.
Not that many people are going to agree with that.
They wouldn't have.
No,
Snyder would have.
Yeah.
Because nobody would be able to put their foot down.
Exactly. It wouldn't have been Shanahan trading up. It would have been Snyder, and then Shanahan would have been even more salty at Snyder. And more drama. It would have been great.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Logan Paulsen for, again, bringing some great analysis of the draft picks for us, to be able to diagnose those and to give us a better idea of what they bring to the football team. Thank you to everyone for your fan questions. Thank you to Colonel. Andy had a question for us. He said, who's going to win the golf battle when they come in September? It's Americans, baby. Americans over. Come on now.
It's me.
We know what happened in 1776. You came over and challenged us. All right, we'll do it again. I'm just kidding. I love you guys.
Hell yeah!
All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
America.
Yeah, and I'm a deeply closeted straight man. So.
All right, everybody. We'll see you guys on Thursday. We've got a great show lined up for you. Do not miss it. Washington football. Hey. What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.